The Atlanta Braves have added shortstop Ha-Seong Kim on a one-year, $20 million deal for 2026. And honestly, this feels like a pretty big deal. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to a special bonus edition of Braves Today on the evening of Monday, December 15th. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. We're proudly part of the Believe Podcast Network, presented to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com to get started and hopefully see Atlanta's World Series odds tick up a little bit. Because news broke tonight, John Heyman, Jeff Passan confirmed it, things like that. Ha-Seong Kim has an agreement on a one-year, $20 million deal with the Atlanta Braves. And John Heyman was the first one to break this. The notes that we have and what we do know right now is that, one, he did have opportunities to sign a multi-year deal, but instead of doing that, he instead came back to Atlanta on a one-year deal. He will play shortstop full-time, so presumably some of the other teams who were in on him wanted him to do other things besides maybe just shortstop. And he will have a chance to go back to free agency next winter. This is for me, this is nothing but a win for the Braves. Okay. From the perspective, there's a few different reasons why. I think number one, there's really no such thing as a bad one-year deal. I know that $20 million to some people, if you just look at what he did last year, coming off of the shoulder issue, coming off of a back issue that came up while he was rehabbing the shoulder surgery. On the whole, he was not very good. In Atlanta, he was better, but it was still a 93 OPS plus. He was still 7% below league average offensively. He didn't really have the stolen base element in his game that he's typically had in his healthy seasons. And so, on its face, it didn't look like a good move, right? I could see how if you believe that 2025 Ha-Seong Kim is who Ha-Seong Kim is as a player, that you don't like this move. But a few things to understand is, one, he's discussed when he got back to Korea after the season and talked to Korean media, he discussed how he was not 100%, right? Again, had shoulder surgery, had I think it was a back issue that came up while he was rehabbing the shoulder. And so there were certain things that he either was not able to do at the same level or at all last year. He had a specific conversation with the Braves about not trying to steal a ton of bases, since the Braves were already not going to make the postseason anyway. He and the team discussed it and agreed his focus was not going to be on stealing bags. It was going to be being healthy and playing every day. The arm strength wasn't there last year coming off shoulder surgery like it had been in previous seasons. We could quantify this. StatCast tracks these things. His average arm strength in 2024 prior to the shoulder injury was 88 miles an hour. Last year, it was 83.7. So, he lost 4 mile an hour off his fastball there. But there's reason to believe that being fully removed from the shoulder surgery, it's going to come back. So, one, even if you believe that it is an overpay, and I personally am fine with the money. I don't love the money. I'm fine with the money. It's only for 1 year. You do have the ability, if he is the player that he thinks he is, if he is the guy who got MVP votes in 2023, with a 749 OPS, a 107 OPS plus, 38 stolen bases, and 17 home runs while winning a gold glove. If he is that guy in 2026, one, very good thing for the Braves. Two, you can put a qualifying offer on him. And so, even if you feel like Ha-Seong Kim is overpaid on this deal, which again, personally, I don't. I'm fine with 20 million. I've been on the record as saying I would have done multiple years at 20 million. It's only for 1 year. You can recoup a draft pick if he is as good as he thinks he is, and you're not able to re-sign him. Let's also remember that you have the ability, if you think that he is back to who he is, you have the ability to extend him. Alex Anthopoulos has absolutely done that in the past. We've seen Alex Anthopoulos bring guys in and extend them. He extended Chris Sale right after acquiring him without even seeing him pitch because he was confident that that was going to happen. So, one, I think the deal is good from the perspective of if he's not back, if the injuries have permanently altered who he is, you're only locked into 1 year. But you have the ability to extend him if he is back to being himself. And I know there's a comment in the chat here on YouTube. There's almost 300 of y'all here. I appreciate that. Boris doesn't do mid-season extensions. Matt Chapman signed an extension late in the year with the San Francisco Giants because he took a shorter-term deal. He couldn't find the long-term deal he wanted in free agency. He signed a shorter deal, and then he signed an extension in the season because he was happy there, and he said, I want this deal done. Dylan Cease got a deal early in the offseason with Toronto because Dylan Cease told Scott Boras, that's where I want to go make the deal happen. Ha-Seong Kim has now, he was picked up off of waivers by the Braves. He had no choice but to come here. He has now turned down multiple years to come back to Atlanta. So this in no way can be regarded as a bad contract because it's 1 year. This is equivalent to all of the stuff that you brought in to get Jared Kelenic. That's what you're paying Ha-Seong Kim for 1 year. You paid David Fletcher almost this same amount, graded over 2 years, but almost this same amount to be in Double-A and throw knuckleballs. This is a good move. It's not Bo Bichette. It's not the big bat you wanted, but this is a good move from a contract perspective. I also think this is a good move from a roster and a baseball perspective. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby, special bonus episode on Monday night to react to the signing of Ha-Seong Kim to a 1 year, $20 million deal for 2026. I mentioned there's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal, right? Like, even if you feel like it's an overpay, it's done after one season and you have the ability to extend him. You're not locked into long term. You do not yet have a shortstop for 2027 unless one of your young prospects takes a massive leap. So we could be in this situation again next winter. That's a problem for next winter. We'll also be in a lockout. It could be an entirely different economic system by the time we have to resolve this. But I do think the thing that maybe not enough people have talked about the upcoming season is if you didn't sign Ha-Seong Kim, right? If you didn't get him in, and personally, I expected Ha-Seong Kim to wait until Bo Bichette signed so that he could better set the market. Because honestly, like, that's what Scott Boras is doing with Cody Bellinger. He said Cody Bellinger was not going to sign until Kyle Tucker signed. So it made sense that Bo Bichette was going to set the shortstop market and Ha-Seong Kim would sign. He went ahead and came back early. Now you have multiple options at shortstop. The thing that really other people have not talked about, I was very concerned about the idea of taking a utility man in Mauricio Dubon, very good utility man, defensively good everywhere, right? But taking utility man Mauricio Dubon and plugging him into shortstop and not having a backup for him. Yes, you have Vidal Brujan. Yes, you have Brett Wisely at the time. Brett Wisely is probably the guy who's going to get dropped on this. But now you have a legitimate shortstop. Ha-Seong Kim will play shortstop every day. And then after, and then if something were to happen to Ha-Seong Kim, right? He were to have another injury, something like that, Mauricio Dubon can step in as the starter. Now you're in a situation where Mike Yastrzemski, Mauricio Dubon can serve as your platoon to pick up an extra, to cover a offensive spot every day. Mauricio Dubon hits lefties really well. Mike Yastrzemski hits righties really well. Both of them can play the outfield. So now you're in a situation where early in the year, Sean Murphy's not going to be around. I told you guys that was going to happen. AA confirmed it on Sunday. Mike Yastrzemski can play left against righties. Dubon can play left against lefties with Profar at DH. You still have threats at all 9 spots in the lineup. Granted, obviously, assuming Michael Harris, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, those guys are all hitting back to the back of their baseball cards, obviously. But now you have both a starter and a backup at shortstop. You did not have that before. You had utility guys like Brujan, utility guy like a Brett Wisely, who could stand at shortstop. They weren't as bad as, say, Vaughn Grissom or somebody, but they were not good shortstops defensively or offensively. At least Nick Allen was a good defender. Brujan and Brett Wisely are not good offensively or defensively. And so now you have a guy in Ha-Seong Kim who is good defensively and we believe can be at least league average offensively. If something were to happen to him, you have another guy who is good defensively in Mauricio Dubon and has a history of, in some seasons, being pretty good offensively, and in other seasons, at least be able to hit lefties pretty well. And it's very clear now that the roster's done, right? I suppose you could go out and sign some sort of big bat for DH, but Alex Anthopoulos has said he doesn't want to do that. He said they like the idea of keeping the DH spot open. You obviously can go through and rotate guys, give guys days off. Yastrzemski can play all 3 outfield spots. Dubon can play literally anywhere on the field but catcher. So you have a lot better ability to give guys days off unless it's Matt Olson. You're not giving Matt Olson a day off. And honestly, if you look at the bench right now, either Drake Baldwin or Sean Murphy is your catcher 1B on any given day. You have Mauricio Dubon, who is, again, a good defender anywhere on the field. You have Eli White, who has speed, has some pop, can play good defense. And then you have somebody, Vidal Brujan, Brett Wisely, somebody else they bring in, with Nacho Alvarez, maybe we don't know who. This might be the best bench that the Atlanta Braves have had under Alex Anthopoulos, really. Because it's Atlanta's bench has always been guys who were willing, especially after the DH came around, guys who were willing to sit on the bench for a week and maybe not touch the field one time. Because everybody played every day, and Atlanta had a full-time DH. Well, now you're in a situation where you're going to have some sort of platoons out there. You're going to have guys who can rotate in through the open DH spot. And what has been the issue for the Braves offensively the last 2 years, other than guys forgetting to hit last year? It was the fact that you've had to use an injury replacement at every single defensive position but first base in the last 2 seasons. You've had to cover every position at some point in time the last 2 years. And you very quickly went through any sort of high-level depth you may have had, and you were now stuck with guys like Gio Urshela playing third base down the stretch as you're trying to make the postseason. Now you're in a situation where you have multiple high quality backups who can rotate in and play, one, to give guys a day off, two, so that you can keep those guys from getting hurt. But if they do still get hurt, you've got somebody who can step in. Robert in the chat here on YouTube, no more Zach Shorts. Amen. No more Zach Shorts. You hopefully, knock on wood, baseball gods listen to me, hopefully do not have to deal with a situation like that. Another thing that I like that we're not really discussing here is seemingly for the first time in a long time, you'll have good hitters on your bench for pinch hit situations. It's something where, think about in previous seasons who, like, you had to send somebody out for a pinch hit appearances. You're going to send Luis Guillorme up there for a pinch hit, things like that. Now you can send Yastrzemski or Dubon if it's a righty or a lefty. If Drake Baldwin's in the lineup, you can send Sean Murphy out there. Eli White has run into quite a few home runs in his time, right? You've got a lot of options here. We don't know as of right now going live. I don't believe we have the official announcement as to who's getting DFA'd on this. I would imagine it's probably something like Brett Wisely. But it ultimately doesn't really matter because you're dropping a backup piece. You're getting somebody in Ha-Seong Kim that significantly raises the floor. And I think we would all agree that Atlanta's issue the last couple seasons has been when you lost starters, whether it was hitters in 24 or rotation guys in 25, you didn't have enough decent guys behind them to keep the team competitive, right? Offensively in 24, you were starting 3 DFA guys and a trade deadline acquisition in the final month of the season, right? You had Whit Merrifield in there, you had Gio Urshela, you had Ramon Laureano, all 3 of them were DFA'd, and then you went and got Jorge Soler at the deadline. You had 4 of your 9 starters, 8 if you don't cut the pitcher, like, were all guys who had been DFA'd or acquired at the deadline. Now you have better guys to make those starts. Pitching wise, that's the big question for me now, because the offense is mostly set. You can upgrade at a bench spot. You can find somebody better than Vidal Brujan if you want to. But right now, you're kind of at diminishing returns. He is the 13th man on the bench. He's not going to actually do a ton of stuff. You should not see him that often. And so the question for me now shifts to the rotation. Chris Sale's a lock. Spencer Schwellenbach's a lock. Spencer Strider's a lock. According to what Alex Anthopoulos said, Renato Lopez is essentially a lock. And so outside of that, you've got Hurston Waldrop. You've got Bryce Elder. You've got Grant Holmes. You have 7 guys who have made plenty of starts for you that you feel good about. Do you go out and get one more? I still think you probably end up, if you acquire somebody, remember, you're going to want quality here. You don't want quantity, you want quality. If you acquire a starter, I feel like it's going to be somebody that can bump everybody down a spot. We just got an email from the Atlanta Braves. We just also got a blue box. It is official now that Ha-Seong Kim is coming back on a 1-year deal. The corresponding move, right-hand pitcher Osvaldo Bido was designated for assignment. He was picked up just the other day. So long, it was nice to know you, Osvaldo. There's your blue box. So again, 7 starters I just mentioned right there. Sale, Schwellenbach, Strider, Lopez, Waldrop, Elder, Holmes. You'll find a starting 5 there. AA told me, when we talked before the winter meetings, told me, like, we're not going to run a 6-man rotation. They can't seem to do it, but they like the idea of having the Swiss Army knife guys in the bullpen where we can have guys cover multiple innings. A Joey Wentz, a Jose Suarez, maybe a Bryce Elder, maybe a Grant Holmes, something like that. So what I'm curious about is, does Atlanta try to add another starter or not? When you look at the money right now, okay, I know it's not our money, but we all care about the money. Atlanta's cash payroll, when you plug in this $20 million signing here, Atlanta's cash payroll is $260 million. Their CBT payroll, what counts against the tax, is just under $256 million. So this pushes Atlanta back into the luxury tax. They are now above the first tier and are paying the luxury tax for 2026, barring some sort of change like, I don't know, trading Aaron Bummer or something. The third threshold is $284, $40 million above the base level. That is the number that Alex Anthopoulos has said he does not want to go over, because that's where your draft pick gets pushed back. So Video Moonshot in the YouTube chat makes a great point. Indirectly, it is our money because we go to Braves games, we buy merchandise, we watch the broadcast. It is kind of our money indirectly. But if you assume that 284 is a rigid limit that they won't go over, and we understand that the Braves like to keep $8 to $10 million available for mid-season trade deadline acquisitions, then you're looking at just under $20 million remaining on the luxury tax payroll. That's the one where we're trying to count this, right? So again, 256, 284 is that hard limit. So if you assume they're keeping $10 million aside, you've got just under $20 million to spend. We just saw Merrill Kelly sign for $20 million a year on a multi-year deal. You good, Bandit? You good? He's good. So, sorry about that. So, I don't think the Braves are going to be able to walk the line of signing a starter that they think is good enough to start a postseason game and pushing all of these guys back one spot in the rotation. I think if you add a guy, it's going to be somebody that either can, that either is going to work in your bullpen or is going to be somebody that can be a starter or can be in your bullpen, right? So either just a true reliever, which I'm not opposed to a true reliever, or a situation where Brad Keller, for instance, it just came up in the chat. Thank you to Borky in the chat. I was in the middle. I had just finished 1,100 and something words on a newsletter for tomorrow, all about Brad Keller. I do still think the only way that you add a starter is a guy who is being paid like a reliever, something like that. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the Braves choose to do. We just got an email that Alex Anthopoulos is going to meet with us in about 20 minutes to discuss this signing. So tomorrow's show, those of you who are either watching this live or listening to this afterwards, the show on Tuesday will be clips from Alex Anthopoulos talking about why they made the signing, why they did this. But in the meantime, $20 million, 1 year for Ha-Seong Kim. Atlanta's offense feels set now. And the question is, do you add a starter? Are you done? What happens going forward? This has been a special bonus edition of Braves Today, Monday, December 15th, second show of the day. Come back tomorrow again. We're going to talk about what Alex Anthopoulos tells us here in about 20 minutes or so. In the meantime, do me a favor. You're listening on audio. 5-star review would be fantastic. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so that you know when we go live to talk about things like Ha-Seong Kim re-signing with the Braves. Until next time, thank you guys for being here. And this has been Braves Today.